Hey guys, this is Tiana Tuna with Hello. I'm a top ranked knockout, and I want to give a shout out to Sauce Tech.
Thank you. You know the vibes.
What is the difference between you and, I don't want to say what's the difference between you and those guys, but why do you decide to go and talk to the media, something that people who are in your position usually don't do?
I'd say it's a couple things. I mean, one, I started Showtime almost 12 years ago. And look, nobody knew who I was when I started, and nobody knows what the strategy was, what the decision-making process, and it always seemed kind of strange. I mean, obviously boxing works a little bit different. You know, the networks in the NBA and NFL, they're not helping determine schedule and, you know, turning down fights and games and things like that. So I think it's fair for transparency. I think it is. I think fans want to know. I think it's helpful to understand how things fit together, how fights happen or don't happen. And I think, you know, more fans would probably appreciate that transparency throughout the sport, because it sometimes it's difficult to understand how things work and why things happen within the sport sometimes.
Did the transparency help or hurt this fight being made, or did it prolong negotiations?
Well, you know, the one area that I try not to get too much into is sort of the substance of negotiations. You know, I've said it many times. I've said it in social media and in interviews. You know, I don't think that full transparency on negotiations I don't think transparency in negotiations is always helpful to the process, just because people have different impressions, different perceptions of things happen, and you sort of complicate things. People's egos get involved. You know, people get concerned about how they're looking publicly. It affects the negotiation. So aside from negotiations, I think there should be transparency, but I think at a certain point, while you're in the midst of negotiations, I think that's, you know, something that should be within the parties. It makes it a lot simpler. And I've always sort of thought that the more you see people talking about a negotiation, the less negotiating there typically is.
Yo, man, it's your hot Tucker, man. The real GOAT, LeBron Donor of the game, man. Shout out to the Sauce Talk podcast. Shout out my man Showtime Shot. If you ain't know, now you know. Hear about it.
Screw you.
That's right.
Screw you.